Even after decades, some films from the 1950s still manage to unsettle us. Why is it that these low-budget, black-and-white chillers continue to make us double-check the locks or glance over our shoulders in a darkened hallway? It's because they mastered the art of implication, the hushed dread before the reveal, the fear of the unknown. Unlike today's special effects-laden horror, these 15 forgotten gems relied on psychological terror, unsettling visuals, and a genius for atmosphere. Here are some of the most spine-chilling movies from the Eisenhower era that are still worth a watch today.
Barely an hour long and almost entirely silent, John Parker's avant-garde thriller feels like a surreal nightmare. A nameless woman awakens in a rundown hotel and wanders through the seedy back streets of Los Angeles. The film's atmosphere is a chaotic blend of oppressive jazz music and unsettling visuals, including a bizarre sequence in a morgue. Shot guerrilla style in downtown LA, the film's production was so raw that police reportedly shut down several night shoots, mistaking the actors for real attackers. While censors later added a heavy narration track to make the film more palatable, the original silent version is far more effective and disorienting. Even Martin Scorsese was so impressed that he kept a battered 16mm print in his personal archive, calling it a raw chunk of subconscious terror. The film's grainy, analog textures create a ghostly charm that digital horrors rarely capture.
In this early 3D film, director William Cameron Menzies, a visionary and Oscar-winning production designer, used the technology to create an immersive sense of dread. The story follows a British aristocrat who, after returning from a Scottish castle, is suddenly aged and terrified. His fiancée follows him only to discover a vast, breathing hedge labyrinth and servants who whisper about a secret. Menzies' hand-painted sets and innovative use of polarized light made the walls pulsate, exactly as he intended. Critics complained that the 3D glasses made the hallways feel endless, which was a brilliant way to enhance the sense of unease. The film's climax features a creature that is so biologically absurd it can elicit both a gasp and a laugh. This unique balance of earnest dread and audacious payoff is a hallmark of great B-movie horror.
Before Hammer Films became famous for its gothic horrors, it adapted this BBC serial into a stark, almost journalistic thriller. When an astronaut returns from a rocket crash as the sole survivor, an oppressive silence suggests that something else came back with him. Professor Quatermass, a no-nonsense scientist, follows a trail of clues that lead from greenhouse murders to a zoo, all while the astronaut's body undergoes a gruesome transformation. The film's use of quasi-documentary lighting and fast-paced shooting gives it a gritty, immediate feel. The British censors slapped it with the new X certificate, and it became an instant sensation. Retitled The Creeping Unknown in the US, it inspired countless monster movies and tapped into a widespread fear that space might send something back that can't live or die among us.
For the first 50 minutes of this film, the horror is invisible. We see only corpses with collapsed necks and hear the eerie squeal of Geiger counters. But in a stunning climactic reveal, the invisible killers materialize as pulsing brains dragging spinal cord tails. The film's genius lies in its use of stop-motion animation brought to life by maestro Carl K. Heaton. Each vein and arterial squelch was meticulously animated, making the final siege feel like a medical diagram gone berserk. The film's publicity team hired nurses to wait in theater lobbies for fainting patrons, a stunt that backfired when local papers reported real emergencies. Even though British censors tried to clip a scene of the brains melting, the film's ability to match miniatures with live action has been praised by effects artists, including Ray Harryhausen, for decades.
Directed by Jacques Tourneur, the master of subtle horror, this film teases the line between skepticism and sorcery. Dana Andrews plays a rational psychologist who investigates a mysterious cult leader. After a torn parchment with ancient symbols floats into a fireplace, he is given a 3-day countdown to doom. The film's producers force Tourneur to reveal the fire-breathing monster in 2 shots. But the brief glimpse somehow intensifies the dread, rather than diminishing it. The seance scene is a masterclass in tension, using a single candle and off-screen wind to paint a picture of quivering fear. Scholars still debate whether the demon is real or a product of psychological manipulation. Either way, the final chase along moonlit train tracks feels like fate itself picking up speed.
Showman William Castle was famous for his theatrical gimmicks, and this film's was called Percepto. He wired select seats to buzz so audiences would feel the parasite of fear pinch them at key moments. Beyond the gimmick, however, is a surprisingly wicked drama. Vincent Price stars as Dr. Chapin, who autopsies executed prisoners in search of a centipede-shaped creature that is born of fear. He even doses himself with LSD in what is believed to be the earliest acid trip depicted on film. The film's single-color scene, blood gushing from a black-and-white bathroom sink, required hand-painting every frame, a technique later homaged by Quentin Tarantino.
The Drake men are crushed, with every heir turning up decapitated on his 41st birthday and a shrunken head delivered as a gruesome receipt. Edward Franz plays Jonathan, the next target, who enlists the help of police and scientists, but the menace, a silent lip-sewn witch doctor, seems to slip through keyholes. The film's prop skulls were reportedly cast from real human specimens, adding a queasy authenticity. The tribal drums, a track that was once removed for TV syndication, pounds like a guilty heartbeat, adding to the rhythmic menace. Restored in 2012, the original audio reveals just how crucial that score is to the film's atmosphere.
In this tragic Frankenstein-style story, a brilliant scientist's brain is saved and placed inside a 9-foot-tall robot so he can finish his work on a cure for world hunger. But isolation and faulty circuits warp him into a metallic zealot who spies on his widow and vaporizes skeptics with death beams. The 7'2" actor Ed Wolf wore platform stilts inside the suit, which had battery-powered eye lamps that sparked on cue. Although the box office receipts were modest, the film found a second life on late-night TV, where its tragic, lonely undertones haunted a young Guillermo del Toro.
The new cemetery chairman, played by Robert Kraft, inherits a map of the cemetery with black pins for occupied graves and white pins for reserved plots. On a rainy day, he accidentally swaps 2 pins. Hours later, the couple they represented dies. Horrified yet morbidly curious, he continues to test the pattern, each pin pushing his sanity closer to the abyss. Director Albert Band locks his lens on the map until its pathways begin to resemble a spider's web, with the humble pushpin becoming one of cinema's cheapest yet most lethal murder weapons. Composer Gerald Fried mingles atonal strings with a tape loop of wind to create a truly chilling atmosphere. The final twist is still debated by critics, but there's no denying the power of the film's premise. This film explores the horror of a genetic throwback. A prehistoric fish is brought back to life, and when Professor Donald Blake cuts his hand on its teeth, he begins to hulk out into a primitive caveman. Universal's posters showed a caveman menacing co-eds, but the film spends equal time lecturing on evolution, making it the perfect debate starter for a drive-in date. The film's closing shot, a janitor scrubbing blood as the school bell announces a class change, still hits like a cynical punchline. The film's mix of daylight terror and academic horror inspired John Carpenter when he was a student at USC, leading him to credit it as an inspiration for Halloween.
While Hammer Films was having success with its Dracula movie, their rivals created this fang-free but mercilessly gory tale. A doctor named Dr. Callistratus is resurrected by a heart transplant and runs a Carpathian asylum that doubles as a blood bank. Inmates vanish down dumbwaiters into a cellar lab where crimson serum steams. The film used warm animal blood pumped through hidden tubing and gagged extras to create its horrifying effects. While overshadowed by Hammer's bigger hits, the film is now hailed by genre scholars for its creation of the prototype mad scientist vampire. This chiller, retitled The Trollenberg Terror in Britain, opens with a decapitated mountaineer and refuses to let up. A radioactive cloud in the Swiss Alps hides one-eyed octopoid behemoths that can telepathically enslave climbers. American broadcaster Forrest Tucker and a clairvoyant carnival performer fight back with Molotov cocktails and cable car explosives. The film used raw tripe, refrigerated between takes to create the sets. Stephen King even name-checked the monsters in his novel It. What lingers isn't the rubber monster, but the unnerving idea of a single gigantic eye judging humanity.
Roger Corman gave director Monty Hellman 2 mandates: shoot a heist film by day and a monster movie by night, using the same cast and location. The result is a tonal espresso. Criminals bicker over gold while a multi-limbed creature drags victims into mine tunnels, webbing them like grisly snowmen.
Hellman dressed a new snow tunnel for each attack, a trick later borrowed by Sam Raimi for The Evil Dead. Whenever the beast appears, the jazzy score dissolves into icy silence, as if the blizzard itself is holding its breath.
When Mexico's Periquitin volcano erupts, it cracks open caverns filled with bus-sized scorpions whose stingers can skewer cattle like shish kebabs. Stop-motion legend Willis O'Brien animated every clacking joint, giving the giant insects and their destruction a real sense of weight and heft. Newspapers splash photos of rubber claws crushing VW Beetles for publicity. Decades later, effects artist Phil Tippett screened the film at Industrial Light and Magic while designing the asteroid bugs in Starship Troopers, proving that the sting of O'Brien's work still inspires. This German film, retitled The Head for its American release, follows Dr. Aud, a scientist who keeps severed heads alive in pans before performing a series of horrifying transplants. The film's most unsettling detail is when he grafts his own head onto a brute caretaker's body. Actress Christiana Kern spent hours buried under a table breathing through tubes for her method decapitation performance. The score samples detuned hospital machinery, foreshadowing industrial music. While German critics called it nausea masquerading as art, art house circles later praised its existential dread. The film raises unsettling questions. What is a person without a body? Or a body without a conscience?
These 15 mid-century nightmares, rescued from bargain bins and bootleg channels, prove that you don't need a tsunami of CGI gore to terrify an audience. All you need is one unsettling premise and the nerve to whisper it in the dark. Horror lives in implication, in the rustle of a curtain, in the dreadful possibility that everyday life can tilt sideways without warning. For your next movie night, bypass the familiar slashers and cue up one of these vault prints instead. Let the projector hum, breathe in that dusty celluloid musk, and remember, shadows cast in the 50s can still reach all the way to your living room door tonight.